Let me ask you something. How much money did your business bring in last year? Quarter meal, half a meal, maybe you hit a whole meal. And how did it feel? Like Tony. Now, how much of that money do you actually have? Like sitting in your bank account? Not for vendors, not for payroll, not for taxes, not for debt and expenses from these personal loans and business loans and credit cards that we have to use to run our business. How much of that money is actually yours? And that right there, that's the trap that a lot of us business owners are stuck in. And here's the crazy part. Some of the most iconic businesses in the world, like Disneyland, McDonald's, they wouldn't even exist if the founders didn't understand the power of life insurance. See, back in the 1940s, Walt Disney wanted to start Disneyland, and he went to the banks for a loan, but the banks told him that his idea was basically stupid, and they said, hey, we ain't gonna give you no money for this. So guess what he did? He borrowed against his life insurance policy, used his own money, became his own bank, and started Disneyland. Today, Disney is one of the biggest brands and one of the most profitable companies to ever have existed. And that would have never happened if Walt Disney didn't have a life insurance policy. Same thing happened with Ray Kroc. You know, the founder of McDonald's. Well, he technically didn't start McDonald's. He kind of took it. That's a different story for a different day. The point is, he's the man who basically created the empire into what we know today. When he needed the money to pay his key employees and launch a McDonald's marketing campaign for Ronald McDonald, he didn't go to a bank. Why couldn't he go to a bank? Because he was leveraged up with so much debt already, the banks wouldn't give him money either. So he actually borrowed against two of his life insurance policies to pay his key employees to keep McDonald's open and start the Ronald McDonald marketing campaign. And that's just crazy. The wealthy have been using life insurance as a wealth building tool for over 100 years. But most business owners, they don't even know that this even exists as an option. So if anyone ever tells you that life insurance is just for when you die, or life insurance is just for rich people, or buy term and invest the difference, remind them that without it, there would be no Disneyland, there would be no Happy Meals, and there would be no childhood memories of diving into that ball pit at McDonald's. And as a reminder, you don't have to be rich or wealthy to use the strategy. Walt Disney wasn't wealthy when he began his life insurance policy and eventually used that money to start Disneyland. Ray Kroc wasn't rich or wealthy when he had to borrow against his two life insurance policies to keep McDonald's afloat and turn it into the brand today. So if anybody tells you you got to be rich or wealthy to do it,
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
so today what I'm going to do is I'm going to break it all down for you and show you how you can use an index universal life policy to build tax-free wealth, control your cash flow, and finally break free from that cash flow trap that a lot of us business owners find ourselves stuck in. You ready to get into it? Let's go. All right, Brandon. So you're telling me that Walt Disney and Ray Kroc used life insurance to start their businesses and build wealth, but how does that actually even work? Well, let me break it down the simplest way that I know possible. There's a very, very wealthy man. His name is Warren Buffett. Maybe you heard of him, maybe you haven't, but he's the most successful investor of all time. And he has two rules to investing, or two rules when it comes to investing. The first rule is don't lose money. And then the second rule is don't forget rule number one. And so there's basically three places where people store money. The first one is what we call a fixed account, meaning a bank account. So the good thing with a fixed account is that your money is super, super safe. But the bad thing with the fixed account is that we don't get any growth. So that's checking account, savings account, money market, certificates of deposit. These are going to pay a very safe, steady rate. Normally it's going to be 0%. But you might get lucky and get 0.1, and you might get really, really, really lucky and get a bank that can pay you 3. And so that's the bad thing. We know that the cost of supplies, employees, taxes generally rise. So if all of our cash is just sitting in a place, not getting any growth, then we might as well just be burning the money. Does that make sense? Now, the second place is the stock market. Okay. And so the good thing with the stock market is the market goes up, our money goes up, but when the stock market goes down, our money goes down. So this is more high risk, high reward. And then depending on the type of stock market account you have, you may not even be able to touch this money until you're 60 years old without penalties or taxes. And then when you can't touch that money when you're 60 years old, you may be paying a higher tax rate than what you would normally pay on it today. Does that make sense? So that's the second way. Now, the third way, this is the secret right here. And this is what actually, this wasn't even really available until 1997. So it's about almost 30 years old. But this is called index. And so the way index works is it's almost like a combination of fixed and variable. Meaning what? Well, it means when the stock market goes up, your money will go up with the growth of the stock market. But when the stock market goes down, your money actually locks in at a guaranteed fixed rate. And usually that fixed rate is going to be 0%. And then when the market goes up, your money will go up again with the growth of the market And then when the market goes down, you don't lose any money, and your money locks in at a fixed rate. So you get to keep all the money that you made. And I know that you might be thinking, Brandon, that sounds too good to be true. What's the catch? I won't go into all the details here. I'm trying to keep this super basic, super simple, but have some other videos explaining how that actually works and how you're able to make money when the stock market goes up and not lose money when the stock market goes down. So let me ask you a question. Which one of these strategies would you trust with your life savings? Would it be fixed? Would it be variable? Would it be indexed? Maybe it's a combination of the three. But let's just say if we had to isolate it, which one of these would you trust with your life savings? That's a good question that you might want to ask yourself. All right. Now, today we're going to be looking at index, and I want to break this down even further to show you exactly how you become your own bank so that you can control your cash flow, manage debt, and build generational wealth using this strategy right here. All right, so first things first, we're going to be looking at an index universal life insurance policy. So what is an index universal life insurance policy? Well, it's kind of like a tax-free savings account, but it's not a savings account. It's actually a life insurance policy. So instead of keeping your money in the bank, earning nothing, or putting all your money into the stock market and crossing your fingers and hope to God that you wake up tomorrow morning and the president ain't said nothing stupid, introduce some new tariffs, and the stock market crashed about 20, 30, 40%, you don't got to worry about none of that because this is going to use an index strategy. Okay. So here's essentially, like in a nutshell, exactly what it would look like. Number one, you have a premium, and the premium is what you pay, and then you have a cost, which is for the actual insurance policy itself. So what does that mean in English? So let's just say you pay $1,000, that's the premium, but then it costs you $100. That's for the insurance. But when you pay that premium and they take out 100, that means there's going to be $900 left over. This is called your cash value. Your cash value then goes into a savings account inside of the life insurance policy, and the insurance company will credit you a certain interest rate every single year that you have the policy. Okay, so you guys remember the index strategy I talked about? When the market goes up, your money goes up. When the market goes down, your money will lock in at that fixed rate. Right. So when the market goes up, you can earn up to your cap of 10 if it has a cap. In most cases, in some cases, there is no cap, so you get the full amount. But when the market crashes, because it's not a if the market crashes, it's when, it always goes down and nothing goes straight up. You're a business owner, you don't just make money every month. It goes up. You might make a lot of money this month. Next month, you might not make that. Following month, you might make twice as much money that you ever made in your entire life. Then the next 3 months, you might make nothing. Right. So it's ebbs and flows. Okay. But the historical average is about 7% per year. This is compounding interest. Basically, it means that your money will double every 10 years if you earn 7% rate of return on your money. Really, really, really cool, in my opinion. All right. Now, the beautiful thing about this savings account inside of this policy is you don't pay any taxes on any of the growth. You can access it anytime you want to. There's no penalties. There's no taxes. There's no restrictions. You don't have to apply for credit. There's no income verification. There's no credit check. There's no strict repayment terms, meaning if you take out a loan against your policy today, you don't have to start making payments on it next week, next month, next year if you don't want to. This is awesome. We're gonna get into some numbers and stuff real quick. All right. And then even better, in a lot of cases, let's say if you get sick or disabled and can't work anymore, there's actually some living benefits where you can use that insurance money while you're alive. So let's just think about how that important that could be for us as business owners, right? Because if we're not running the business is not making any money. And if we can't run the business, so now that you see how this works, I want to go ahead and hop into a real life example. And I want to introduce you to, we just gonna call him John to make sure we can keep everything private here. But he's 42 years old. He owns a successful trucking business, and on paper, he's killing it. Last year, his business brought in $1.5 million. But when you actually look at his finances, he's only got about $20,000 in his bank account and almost $300,000 worth of debt between loans, credit cards, and every single dollar that he was making was going right back into the business. He had no financial plan, no financial security outside of work harder, make more money. Work harder, make more money. Does that sound familiar? And just imagine the type of stress that puts on our personal lives, because we got to work hard, you stay away from the family, and then you hear from the wife or you hear from your husband, hey, you work too much. But they don't understand the struggle. Like, hey, we got to work because we're trying to take care of y'all. And so one day he was talking to his friend, we're going to call his friend Mike. And Mike, who put him on the IUL, had told him how he was using it. So instead of leaving money in the bank earning nothing, he was growing it tax-free and borrowing it like his own bank. So John was skeptical at first, but then Mike pulled out his phone, pulled up his statement, and was like, look, this is what I've been doing. And that's when it clicked for John. All right. So here's the plan that we set up to turn his business income into real wealth. we're going to walk through this illustration, and this is so what an illustration is it gives you a projection of what your plan can look like based on how much money he puts into it, based on how much money he takes out of it. It takes into account all of the costs that he's going to pay for it, all of these things. Okay, so this is not like a guarantee, like, hey, you put in this amount of money, you're guaranteed to have this amount of money. This is a projection based on historical data and based on what the insurance companies are legally able to show based on the information that they have. John actually decided to contribute $50,000 a year, which ultimately came out to 20% of his income. In terms of the number, you can really choose any number that you want to. It needs to be something that you can easily do without really thinking about it. I've seen people do 10% of their income. I've seen people do 50% of their income. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's whatever works for you. Does that make sense? So first things first, we have our premium outlay, or at least the initial annual premium. So the premium is just how much money is expected to be paid during the year. He doesn't have to pay $50,000 a year. He can't pay any more than $50,000 a year. You may have heard me talk about this on some of the other videos that I have out there, but for his policy, his maximum that he can put in is $50,000. His minimum is actually about $5,000 for the year. So right here where it says premium outlay, this is going to represent all of the money going in during the year. It does not have to be paid all at once. It can be paid in different amounts throughout the year. However the money comes in, it can be paid monthly, every other month, quarterly, twice a year, once a year. You can set up monthly and then add lump sums throughout the year. Whatever makes sense. It's flexible like that. All right. And then this column would represent any money coming out. So those are loans. Okay. Now, right here, you're going to have two columns. So this first column right here, from here to here, this is assuming John only averages 4.25% interest for his policy. So, in the previous example where I talked about earning 7% on average, this is going to show us if he earns 4.25% on average. So I want us to focus right over here. This is going to be 5.75%. So it's historically done 7, but we're not going to look at 7. We're only going to assume that we average 5.75%. Do we think we can get 5.75? Probably. I think we can get that. If we can average 10% in the stock market, we can average 5.75 here. So now that we have that out of the way, all John is going to do is he's going to put in 50,000. All right. So let's go over and take a look at his cash value. All right. So what is the cash value? So you guys remember when I first said when you pay the premium, there's a cost that comes out. And then after that cost, that money goes into the savings account. And the savings account is what gets the interest rate. So this is how much money is actually in John's savings account earning the interest rate. You guys getting it? The surrender value, this is how much money John can access of his money. Think of it almost like his own bank, his own personal line of credit. Some of you are familiar with business lines of credit or home equity lines of credit. This will be called a life insurance line of credit. But unlike those other lines of credit, this line of credit, there's no income verification, no credit check, there's no strict repayment terms. You can pay the money back when you want, however you want, if you want, which we'll talk about in a minute. And you don't have to worry about defaulting on it. And on top of that, his policy comes with $750,000 worth of permanent life insurance coverage. Now, this is key because before this, John didn't even have any life insurance. And remember, he had about $300,000 worth of just business debt. We ain't even talking about personal debt. It was just business debt that he had. All right. And so this was peace of mind for him, knowing that God forbid something happened to him, at least there'll be enough money to cover the debts. And then there'll still be some money left over to take care of his wife and his kids. That's generational wealth. That's real generational wealth right there. All right. So by 5 years into it, John would have paid $250,000 of his own money, and he's projected to have $260,000 of actual cash value in his policy. So why is this important? Well, it's important because if you remember, when we first started out, John was negative about $5,000 here because he paid for his cost of insurance for having the policy itself. But in 5 years, he actually is positive $10,000 net of all of his charges. Okay. Time out, Brandon. Why is his death benefit going down, and why is his surrender value going down? Keep in mind what I said, that the surrender value is his line of credit, is how much money he can access from his policy. What does that mean? Well, let's go and look at this. So we go back to year 5. John's goal is to actually, instead of getting a high interest debt, he wants to become his own bank, and he's going to borrow $60,000 from his policy to purchase a brand new truck to help expand his business, which in turn will help him make more money. All right. And the beautiful thing about this loan is that he can pay it back, but he doesn't have to pay it back. Here's what happens if he doesn't pay it back. They're just going to subtract the $60,000 plus interest from the policy amount, the death benefit amount that he has. right? So this is the security for him being able to take out these loans and being able to use that money to expand his business, grow his business. This is how he would use the policy, just like Ray Kroc used the policy to take out a loan and start the marketing campaign for McDonald's. This is no different than what Walt Disney did with his policy when the bank wouldn't give him money because they thought his idea was stupid, and he became his own bank and used his life insurance policy to go start Disneyland. It's the same idea here that John has now set up for him. Hopefully you guys get it. All right, so year 6, year 7, year 8, year 9, and year 10, he's going to put in his $50,000 a year. So a total amount of money paid over 10 years will be $500,000. Let's just say in year 10, business is really, really slow and he doesn't have the money to pay for his vendors, his equipment, his gas. Well, guess what? Instead of going into more debt, because the biggest expenses that all of us have is interest and taxes. I'm going to say it again. The biggest expense that all of us have is interest and taxes. There's a famous quote by my man Nelson Nash, who wrote the book Becoming Your Own Banker. Highly suggest go check that book out. And in this book, he said, we're always dealing with borrowed money. We either borrow money from a bank and pay interest, or we use our own cash and give up the interest that we could have earned by investing. Once I understood that, it clicked in my mind that I got to leverage everything. Leverage everything. Borrow against everything. Are you guys getting it? So 10 years into this contract, he's paid $500,000. Business slows down, he got to take $100,000 out to pay his employees, keep the business afloat, so that way he don't lose it and can continue making money. Let's take a look at how much money he has. Remember, he only put in 500. He got 600 in the policy, and he took 100 out. Actually, at this point, he took a total of $160,000 out, all tax-free. And all of this, he hasn't even made any payments back towards it. Now, he could make payments back towards it if he wanted to, but he doesn't necessarily have to, okay? And if he did make the payments back towards it, he just have more money in the future that he could use however he wanted. Again, just like a line of credit. All right, so after 10 years, John has fully funded this policy. He don't got to put no more money into it, although he can continue saving money into it. And that's probably what he would do is continue saving money in it, or maybe start another policy because you can have more than one. But at some point, John is going to use this for retirement income. All right, so now John's 67 years old. He sells the business, and depending on how profitable the business is, he might get a few $100,000, maybe $1 million. And so separate from the profits from the sale of his business, he can use his policy as a tax-free retirement income stream. And he's able to take out $85,000 at age 67. And then each year he's able to take out more and more and more and more and more money, all the way through age 90. All right. So just to recap, John would have paid a total of $500,000 into his policy. He would have gotten back his $500,000 plus $2.7 million. Let's just round up $2.8 million in tax-free income. And he would still leave behind $1 million of tax-free money to his wife, his kids, and his grandkids. See, this is the power of insurance. This is what Walt Disney saw. This is what Ray Kroc saw. This is what I saw when I learned this concept for myself. And I said, oh my God, I can't believe this is like really real life. And the best part about all this, his money never stops growing. All right, guys, so that concludes today's video. I hope you got a lot of value out of it. This ain't about selling you anything. It's all about making sure you have the right information to make the best decision for you and your family and everything that you work hard to build. If you're a business owner, or even if you're not a business owner and what I shared resonated with you and you want to see how something like this could look like for you, I'm happy to walk you through a custom IUL illustration so you can see your real numbers tailored to you. Go ahead and just click the link below and just schedule a free strategy session with me or someone on my team. No pressure, just real knowledge so you can see what makes the most sense for you. So if you